Hello, my name is Lincoln, Program Director here at P3C Pro. Today, I want to talk about what I believe to be the misconception of melatonin. Now, melatonin is the most popular sleep supplement on the market. And many people you'll hear saying, oh, I took melatonin last night and I slept so great. Now, what you might not know is melatonin does not actually promote deeper or more restful sleep. Melatonin is a hormone released from the pineal gland that signals the body that it's time to go to sleep. Now, that's not a bad thing, but the fact that it is a hormone that the body releases means that we don't need to supplement with it. So as we supplement, we actually suppress the natural release of melatonin from our body. But melatonin is naturally released when it starts to cool down during the day. So as the day is ending and the weather starts to cool, that is one of the prerequisites to melatonin releasing. The other thing is darkness. So before we lived in a day and age to where we had electricity and heat, our body operated off the cycles of the sun. So as the sun rises, we become more energized and we become more awake as we reach midday or the sun being at its peak. And then as the sun starts to set, the weather starts to cool down and darkness starts to settle in, and melatonin is naturally released. Now, another cool thing, aside from just the cool weather and darkness, is also the height of the light, how it shines off into our eyes. It is also an indicator on whether melatonin is released or suppressed. So when the sun is at its peak, when it is at its highest point, melatonin is going to be suppressed. So back before we had electricity, that was no issue, because once the sun went down, maybe we had a fire, maybe we had some candles, but that was a lower level of brightness and also literally lower to the ground. So as we have, like even in here, I have an overhead light shining on me. That overhead light is keeping me alert and awake. So in our homes, most of us have overhead lights. And so let's say that you are getting ready for bed and you walk into your bathroom and you flip on your light and it shines right on you. That is going to suppress the natural release of melatonin. So a couple things that we can do to help naturally release melatonin is we can set our thermostat somewhere between 64 to 69 degrees at night. So either turn your air conditioning down or turn the heater down, because in that range is an optimal range for sleeping and for the release of melatonin. Now, as it is becoming darker outside, it is ideal to shut off the higher lights and the brighter lights within your home, and in the evenings to use night lights and lamps and lower and dimmer lights to start to create a environment of calmness and to help promote that natural release of melatonin. Now, this works well for anybody, but especially for parents with young kids who may have trouble getting your kids into their bedtime routine. Because for those people who have toddlers, they can stay wild into all hours. But if you start to integrate these habits, cooling the house down, shutting down the highlights, and just placing dimmer lights on at night, you are going to naturally release the melatonin within the children, which calms them down along with calms us down. So one reason why I get annoyed with melatonin being one of the more popular sleep supplements is because it's not necessary. Now, where it is very useful actually is if we travel abroad and we are going from one time zone to one that, let's say, is 8 hours ahead or 12 hours behind. So our circadian rhythm, once we arrive, is completely out of whack. That is the perfect opportunity to use melatonin to reset your circadian rhythm. But we don't need to reset our circadian rhythm every night. All we need to do is implement a couple of easy and natural habits so that we can release melatonin and we don't need to take a supplement which suppresses the natural release. So hopefully maybe this explains melatonin in a way you've never heard it explained before. But this is also why don't waste your money on melatonin supplements, because you do not need it. I promise you, as someone who has lived within the household of children and young children, not only have I seen this work for myself, but I have seen it work on a consistent basis for young children. And for parents with young children, one of the greatest things we can do is get our children to go to sleep. So please actually set your thermostat at nighttime somewhere between 65 and 69 and do yourself a favor. Place lamps and night lights around your house so you don't need to turn on your highest and brightest lights. And if you do this, please provide me feedback. I would love to hear about how it has worked for you and your family. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this provided you a little bit of useful information, and I'd love to hear about your experience.